Good evening and welcome everybody. Thanks for taking the time out of your night to join us for tonight's public hearing. This is a public hearing for the Noth Shores of Saugatuck LLC. This is an application received for a precast concrete boat ramp in Saugatuck Township in Allegan County. My name is Ryan Blazik. I'm with Eagles Environmental Support Division. I'm just going to be helping to moderate the public hearing tonight. But before we get too far, just have a few things to go through. All right, first thing is, this is what our agenda is going to look like. We're starting off with an introduction. That's what we're doing right now. Big thing to keep in mind is going to be two parts to tonight's hearing. We're going to start off with an informational session. That's where the applicant is going to have an opportunity and it's going to present some information on the proposed project. And then after that, we're going to go through a question and answer session. So you have an opportunity to ask some questions about this application and project. That'll take us no later than about 6:30. And then we're going to go through the ways to submit an official comment. And then we're going to go through the official hearing portion. That's where everyone will have an opportunity to make a statement for the record on this application. And we'll explain how we're going to do that a little bit later. Then we're also going to go over where to find other information and who to contact with additional questions. In case you haven't joined us for one of these hearings before, all lines are going to be muted during the hearing. So you'll be able to hear us and we won't be able to hear you. That is unless you want to make a statement or ask a question tonight. We'll explain how we're going to do that a little bit later. You can submit a question anytime using the Q&A box in your Zoom toolbar. We'll be answering those questions, as I mentioned before, after the informational session and before we go on to the hearing part. And then also, just so you're aware, we are recording this hearing. It'll be posted on our YouTube channel in a couple days, and you can watch it again or forward it on to somebody if you'd like. All right, it's at this time I'd like to invite our other Eagle staff on the line to introduce themselves.
Thanks, Ryan. My name is John Byha. I'm the environmental engineer that's in charge of this application. I work in the Kalamazoo District Office for Water Resource Division, and I'll defer it now to Derek.
Hey everybody, I'm Derek Harrelson, District Supervisor for Kalamazoo District Office for the Water Resource Division of Eagle.
All right, thank you both for those introductions. And so we're going to move right into it here. And we're going to start with the information session. We're going to find Scott Bosgraaf and Nick Cortez in the audience, and we will unmute you. And then you'll have an opportunity to present some information on this project. So looks like Scott, you are unmuted. Are you there?
I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you well. I've got your slides. I've got some diagrams here for you, so I can move right into those. And then if you just want to let me know when to move on to the next one. And we'll
all right. If you could pull up the first picture, if you would, please.
Yep.
All right. And then are you controlling the arrow cursor? Am I? Nope, I am. It looks like.
I think that's me.
Oh, that's you?
Yep.
All right. Do you know where the proposed boat ramp is?
I do not, but I think it's on future slides. Is it?
All right, right there.
Okay.
Exactly.
That was my guess.
All right. Well, let's start here if we would. I am Scott Bosgraaf from Noth Shores, and I am here to represent this application this evening. We're here to discuss an application in front of Eagle for the placement of concrete planks on top of an existing boat ramp. This proposed permitted activity is located, and maybe a couple notes just so we have a little background. This proposed permitted activity is located inside of a private gated residential community, and the proposed boat ramp will be used only by the owners of the residential portion of Noth Shores project. This is not an amenity or use available to the owners of the commercial development of Noth Shores or to the public. If we could go to that second slide. So the second slide here, and maybe a couple points of clarification. I'm assuming everybody on the call has probably looked at the permit application already online. So I'm just going to go through a few of the pages and just point out some things that I think are important. On this particular slide, it shows the navigational, the United States Army Corps' navigational channel boundaries. And there's a couple points that should be noticed. Noth Shores riparian rights off from our shore follow the center of the navigational channel of the Army Corps channel along the shoreline. And these proposed concrete ramp that is in here, this 104-foot section, if you go to the northeast corner of that, it is still over 154 feet from the corner of the concrete structure to the edge of the United States Army Corps navigational boundary. North Shore believes 154 feet is plenty of room to stay outside of the navigational channel. If we could maybe go to the next page. Yeah, that's a little better, a better close-up. Again, showing kind of the distance between the navigational channel and the concrete proposed plank boat ramp. I don't know that there's a whole lot more to say than that. It's what we would think would be a simple application, but if I guess go into the Q&A part, if there's more questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thanks, Scott. I think this might be our last diagram. Let me see. Oh yeah, and then we'll go to the Q&A. Anything to say on this section? Is this just like?
I mean, we shot a grade to show existing current conditions at that day, but depending on the winds that come from the west and the current that comes through the river, that changes, often. So sometimes it's smooth and a pretty consistent ramp. Sometimes it has a bump in it that would need to be smoothed out to place the concrete. But the day that we shot these elevations, that's what it was.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for the information and for presenting that to us. Hopefully that helped answer some questions. If you still have questions, you can type them in to the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We're going to have a little Q&A session right now. So you can type those in. I'll ask the question then, or if you prefer to ask your question verbally, what you can do is select the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen, and I'll basically be taking turns calling on you. People have the raised hand and then the Q&A box and asking questions. If we have anyone on the phone, like who is calling in by phone, you can select #2 on your receiver. And what that'll do is that'll raise your hand in Zoom, and I'll call on you using the last 4 digits of your phone number. So with that, I do have a question in here. What is the distance from the boat ramp to the south boundary of the Saugatuck Dunes State Park?
I do not have that in front of me, but I'd be happy to get that for you.
Okay. Thank you. I will have the information of people asking the question. So I'm assuming Derek would be able to provide that through Scott. Let's see here.
Real quick, Ryan, I just checked on an aerial, which is of course not super accurate, but looking about almost 1,600 feet from the northern corner of the boat ramp up to the state park's property line. I'm just measuring off an aerial, so it's approximate, but.
I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for finding that on the fly. Next question is, how is the ramp to be used?
Well, you would hook a boat and a trailer up to a vehicle, and you would back down the ramp to place the boat in the water. Or you would walk down the ramp if you were putting a kayak in the water or a canoe in the water and place the boat in the water and then walk out or drive out.
Okay. Where do the boats queue when there are several waiting to be trailered?
Well, there is parking places in the project further inland, so you could queue there, but I don't actually anticipate that problem because there's so few people on the project.
Okay.
But there are parking spots actually just literally 150, 200 feet to the north.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Scott. How many residents or property owners in North Shore would have access to and use of this ramp?
At the present time, there would be 15.
right, are there any other questions out there? That's the last one that I have in my queue. Oh, here's another one that's popping in. I think you answered part of this, I believe, but if not, correct me if I'm wrong. Where will all the cars, trailers be parked? And how many cars, trailers? And what is the maximum number of potential property owners? Will the area be paved? Any information on lighting?
Well, if you go back to that first drawing,
All right, hold on. Right, oh, this or,
that one right there.
okay,
So if you follow directly north of that, where the steel is sitting on the ground there, there's angled parking right there.
all right, here.
So that's where you would park. And I believe there's between that one and there's one more parking lot a little bit further north. There would be more parking spaces than there are owners.
Okay, and then
As
how
far
many?
as far as
Okay.
lighting, there is already lighting along the side of the boat ramp, and there is down lighting there, has been there for about 7 years.
On the side,
right.
and then,
Right along the edge of the wall there, there's a little concrete slab. Yeah, there's down lighting there. And the last question was, how many owners? We do
how
not
many
know.
owners? Okay, and then will the area be paved? Is this paved, this road?
It is paved. It is already paved.
All right. Um, it says the question was not about park. I think this is referring to the queue, not about parking. It's about boats in the water when several are waiting to be removed from the water. They're providing some clarification on their question about boats in the queue, I believe.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I think about where boats in the water would wait when several are waiting to be removed from the water.
Well, you have a seawall that's right there along where the sidewalk is. If somebody wanted to sit on the edge there and wait, they could, but again, not a problem that I would expect because the sheer volume that we have there.
All right. Can you elaborate why the ramp is necessary when there are already other ramps that exist for the public?
You got cut off one more time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Why is the ramp necessary when there are other ramps already exist? Or it says exit, but I think it means exist for the public.
Well, I think it's more of a utilization of an existing ramp that is there now that gets presently used the way it is and the condition that it is. And it'll just create a better and a safer environment if it has concrete planks on it versus the sand and the gravel that's there now.
Gotcha. Are boats still going to have a private boat slip along the ramp anywhere?
No, no slips are anticipated or proposed at this time.
It's rapid fire questions. Just waiting to see if they had any raised hands, and I'm not seeing any. So we'll continue on with these that are typed in. Is the angle to back in with the vehicle too tight, and how will it be monitored? And that's asked if we can show the map again to discuss. I think the map is up right now. The angle to back in, probably with this road, I'm wondering if they're meaning.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's I've used it many times the way it is now. You just literally back in out of the parking spots down the road and the water.
Hey, Scott, maybe you could mention what's your anticipation for like the maximum length of a boat that you think someone would try to put in with this ramp? I mean, we're not talking massive boats with this little ramp, are we?
No, I mean, if I looked at the people that are there and the boats that they already have in inventory, we're talking 13 to 8 meters. So roughly 25 or 7 feet to 13 feet.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and then there are a lot of still a lot of questions in here related to how many property owners besides the present 15 are planned. Is there anything else we could say on that? Seems like there's a lot of
There
interest.
is not.
Okay. All right, it looks like I have a raised hand, so let's see here. Oh, now I don't. Oh, now I do. All right, Dale Harrison, we are going to unmute you, and then you will be able to ask your question. Just one thing, if you have a statement to make, hold that for after the Q&A period. We'll use any statements, or we'll take any statements during the actual hearing part, which is coming up. So Dale, you are unmuted on our end. All you have to do is click your microphone icon. You should be able to unmute yourself and ask your question. We'll give you a couple seconds here to try to do that. If not, feel free to type your question in. But it looks like you're unmuted on our end, so you just have to unmute yourself and your microphone.
I think
there you are. Are you there, Dale?
I think I should be good.
Okay, yep, go ahead and ask your question.
I followed this project for a couple of decades anyway, and some of the build-out scenarios seem to approach like 300 residential units, or 250 or 125. I'm not sure how candid the developer is about the numbers that could take place there if it was a max-out development. That's one question. The other question, I'd like to go back to that second slide and talk about the distance from the shoreline to the navigational channel on the easterly part of the upstream edge from the former Broward Marine boatwork launch area. That looks pretty near to the navigational channel. Actually, I have a third question too, and I guess some people have pretty big yachts, like 60 footers, 70 footers. It's an expensive development. I think from a marketing standpoint, I think North Shores would want to make launching available to them, given the pricey lots and so forth. So I guess there's three questions. If you could approach those or ask those, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Just for our benefit, can you go one by one? What was the first one, Dale?
The first one had to do with the, say that you have a maximum development of the acreage involved there. I've heard 150 units. I've heard more units, a PUD, more density. 15 seems far from what's really anticipated there. Can you help me out with a little clarity on the numbers?
Yeah, we don't have any plans right now for what the numbers would look like, Dale, or we'd be happy to share them with you if we did.
And then what was the second question?
Well, there was a question about the yacht length. And I know people with money have big boats, and you've got some buildings that look like they could house some pretty substantial yachts that would be part of the development. Is there a maximum that you see that would be allowed for this launch? Maximum?
Well, I mean, maybe to clarify that, Dale, earlier on, I had said that the commercial development, which you're speaking of, that houses, I guess, in your perspective, maybe boats or larger ones, is not part or allowed inside of the gate. So it's not part, or they are not allowed to use the inside of the development. So the ramp is not available to the commercial tenants or the commercial owners that are here. As far as larger boats, just being a boater that I am, not a lot of people trailer boats, over, I would say on an average, maybe 25 to 35 feet. After that, typically boats are handled by a marina and a lift and a hoist, and they're put on stands and on a travel lift. I mean,
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see on the mechanics how you're going to put a bigger boat in or how you're going to move one around anyways.
I'm not even sure you could get a big boat down your road either. I mean,
Well, there
50
you go.
maybe, but 70, I don't know. Maybe.
Well, yeah, I think you'd have a little problem with a 70-footer, even trying to bring it down the road to get underneath the power lines.
Yeah, I guess the third question goes to the frontage. I think you have about 1,100 feet or 1,050, somewhere in that area. But I'm wondering why you've never, given the recent denial of the basin and the likelihood that it's not ever going to happen, why haven't you filed an application for docks off the shoreline, which are allowed under the Saugatuck Township waterfront ordinance? And if there are any issues with the navigational channel and length of docks that you've looked at?
Not sure that I find the question in that one. You want to try me one more time? You cut out on maybe half of it.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm not sure what I can do. I'll try to articulate it better. I'm wondering why you've never filed an application consistent with the existing waterfront ordinance that allows for docks off the shore of that development project. I think you have around 1,000 lineal feet, which would allow for a number of docks. Have you looked at that as an option, or will you?
No, we haven't.
Well, I'm gonna have to get some additional questions, Dale, because there's a lot building up here. But yeah, thanks for those 3 questions. I'm gonna try to get onto some more of these. All right. So one question in here: does this replace the marina, or is it in addition to?
I think the two are unattached. One really has nothing to do with the other.
Okay. Let's see here. A lot of the questions related to the number of houses that are projected, which we've already talked about. Are any boats using the existing ramp? I guess
They are.
Okay. How does this ramp fit into a wider desire of the developers for an eventual boat basin?
Pardon me?
It says, how does this ramp fit into the wider desire of the developers for an eventual boat basin?
Again, I would say that they're not attached. One can survive without the other.
Okay, let's see here. All right, and this one is, and maybe this one's more for John, I think, but maybe you can talk about the permitting process a little bit, John. But it's, can the Eagle make the boat ramp conditioned on eliminating the marina permit? And can Eagle limit the number of boats? Is there anything related to the permit
I think the answer is no to both of those. But if Derek wants to say anything else about that, that's fine. But they own, X number of linear feet along the river. I don't know that we would limit them to the number of boats they had.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's problematic when it comes to we're reviewing the boat ramp and understanding the uses of the boat ramp. But in terms of like enforceability, I mean, it's certainly when we're issuing, public boat ramps and even private ones, I don't think we've put controls or maybe even have the authority to limit or practically enforce the watercraft using it. So that's not an area that we have, to my knowledge, typically, kind of regulated or kind of assumed authority when it comes to the watercraft. So.
All right, thank you both for answering that one. How far into the channel does the ramp reach, and how deep does it go?
If you look at the drawing that is on there, it's actually flush with the seawall. So it doesn't actually stick into the channel. And if you pull up the side profile drawing, which was your last page.
Okay.
Well, actually, you know what? You can see it here. It goes from 582 to 574.
Gotcha. Let's see here. We already talked about a lot of these. This one is somewhat related. If the current boats in the property are 10 to 20, how would this be controlled in the future to confirm the ramp is adequate? If they're 10 to 20 feet. I think we've already touched on that one too. Anything further?
No, I don't have anything further. I think I said it was from 8 meter to 13 feet, actually.
Will North Shore provide boat storage given the marina was denied?
No, North Shore has no intention to provide boat storage.
And it looks like, and just so you know, I will be providing these questions to our Eagle staff afterwards, but there's a lot in here that we've already talked about and addressed related to the number of property owners, about the marina. So there's one comment, it's a very busy traffic area. Would these boats not significantly impede road traffic in the channel?
No, these boats will be way outside of the navigational channel.
Now we've talked about that some too. Right, let's see here. A lot of the questions are related to kind of those two items: is the boat basin and ramp, and how many residents, which we've already asked a few times. Okay, here we go. This is probably going to be our last question because we're also at about the time we need to move on. Are there any elements put forward in the permit that were denied in the marina application last February?
We'll go with a straight no on that one.
Yeah.
And I've had a few more. Where's the ramp in relation to the Oxbow Lake? Is the picture showing this?
I don't think we have a picture like that, but Oxbow Lake is further to the east inland and then further to the south. The two are not visible from each other.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, Oxbow Lake, the entrance to Oxbow Lake, which I understand you can't always get a boat through, is about 2,000 feet from his ramp, as a boat would go, not directly.
And then it would be south another mile.
Something like that, yeah. So I guess it really depends on what part of Oxbow Lake you're talking about. Are you talking about where you would get into it from a boat off the Kalamazoo River, or are you talking about straight as the bird flies?
And I didn't ask the question, so.
All right, and then this one was actually gonna be our last one. We did have a couple more. Has Eagle been on the site and witnessed how many boats use the river on busy days? People frequently are outside of the navigational channel, so I guess the question is,
well, maybe the easy answer to that is if you actually go on the permit application for the marina, you can actually watch a video that covers, I think, a full summer. Takes a picture every 10 minutes. It can show you exactly how much boat traffic is on the river.
I can say I've been there during heavy boating times, and there's a lot of boats, or there are a lot of boats certainly using the river, and they don't necessarily stay in the navigation channel. That's true. But North Shores wouldn't necessarily have to stay in, their riparian area with their boats either. They can go in the navigation channel just like everybody else. It's all public, right?
That is correct. And I mean, I live there and I'm there all the time. And I can tell you that 85% of the day or time of the year, there's no boats on the channel or on the river.
Yeah, it's just those holiday weekends and such, right?
Correct.
Mostly.
Pick a couple days out of the year.
Well, thank you all for being on that panel and for all of you for asking those questions. We're going to move on to the next part of the hearing today. So this will conclude the Q&A session. All right, but before we get into how we're going to do the hearing and take your comments, we're going to talk about the other ways to submit a comment in case you didn't want to submit one today and give a comment. You can do that through My Enviro. It's equals My Enviro portal by accessing the event under submission HQ1 PXNK VCRV1. And we're going to put this link in the chat as well, so you'll be able to access it there. You can also make a comment by mail to Eagle Water Resources Division, the Kalamazoo District Office. And that's at 7953 Adobe Road, ADOBE. This is in Kalamazoo, Michigan, 49009. The public comment period will be open for 10 days. So that will be on August 23rd that will end. And so we are now going to kick off the hearing part. So I'd like to invite John to read the opening statement to get us going.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it. Let me just grab my papers here. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Baiha, as I introduced myself before, and I'm the district representative in the Water Resources Division of the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, or EGLE. I will be serving as the hearings officer for the public hearing on EGLE submission number HQ1-PXNK-VCRV1. With me tonight is Derek Haraldson, who's already introduced himself as well. He's my district supervisor, and he has been assisting me with the review of the permit application. As far as an agenda for tonight, to describe how it's going to work tonight, I will begin with some background information on why we're here tonight. I will then describe the purpose of the hearing and how your comments will be used. Following that, I will outline the procedures under which we will take your comments and then describe what will happen after tonight's hearing. It will then be time for you to provide comments, and we will spend the majority of the time tonight listening to those comments. At the end of the hearing, I'll read the closing statement. By way of background information, the Water Resources Division are responsible for administering a variety of programs that help to protect the inland lakes and streams, wetlands, floodplains, sand dunes, and the Great Lakes. These programs regulate certain activities such as dredging and filling a lake, stream, or wetland, constructing a dam, constructing a marina, placing shore protection, or constructing docks, and building in a designated critical dune area, as we are dealing with tonight, wetlands or floodplains. The law governing these responsibilities is the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act 1994, or PA Public Act 451 as amended. We're here tonight because Scott Bosgraaf, Noth Shores of Saugatuck LLC, has proposed the following: install a precast concrete boat ramp along the west wall of the existing westernmost boat well on the Noth Shores of Saugatuck, or NSS property. The boat ramp will measure 23 feet wide and 104 feet long. The ramp will allow vessels of the property owners within the Noth Shores development to be hauled in and out as necessary. The ramp will be constructed with precast concrete panels. Regrading and shaping of the existing sand buildup in the existing boat well will be approximately 120 cubic yards. And the existing sand will remain, but will be spread evenly to create a smooth surface upon which the concrete panels will be set. There is also the addition of some gravel underneath the panels as necessary to provide a good solid base. In order for the permit to be granted, Eagle must find that the proposed activities described in the public notice meet certain criteria set by Part 31, Water Resource Protection, Part 301, Inland Lakes and Streams, and Part 353, Sand Dune Protection and Management of the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act 1994, or PA 451 as amended. In general, we must consider the effect of the proposed project on river and critical dune area, since those are the resources that potentially are impacted by this project. When reviewing an application for permit under provisions of Part 301 Inland Lakes and Streams of Act 451, Eagle is charged to make the following considerations as required by Section 30106 of Part 301. The department shall issue a permit if it finds that the structure or project will not adversely affect the public trust or riparian rights. The department shall not grant a permit if the proposed project or structure will unlawfully impair or destroy any of the waters or other natural resources of the state. When reviewing an application for permit under provisions of Part 353 Sand Dune Protection and Management of Act 451, Eagle is charged to make the following considerations as required by Section 353.04 of Part 353. Subject to Section 353.16, a permit shall be approved unless the local unit of government or the department determines that the use will significantly damage the public interest on privately owned land, or if the land is publicly owned, the public interest in publicly owned land, by significant and unreasonable depletion or degradation of any of the following: the diversity of the critical dune area within the local unit of government, the quality of the critical dune area within the local unit of government, the functions of the critical dune areas within the local unit of government. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to give anyone interested in Scott Bosgraaf, Noth Shores of Saugatuck precast concrete boat ramp installation as an opportunity to provide information that Eagle can use in making the decision on whether or not to issue a permit. Please recognize that Eagle can only use the information you provide if it relates to the criteria that Eagle must use in making a permitting decision. Some of you may simply want to express your support or opposition to the project. We will be happy to make note of your position, but please understand that Eagle by law is not allowed to base our decision on whether or not there is widespread support or opposition to the project. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to give anyone interested in Scott Bosgraaf, Noth Shores of Saugatuck LLC precast concrete boat ramp installation an opportunity to provide information on whether to issue a permit. In just a moment, I will outline the procedures we will use in taking your comment. But before I do so, I need to mention that the notice of this hearing was published in the commercial record on August 1st, 2024. As we discussed at the beginning of the informational session, if you have a comment to provide, please raise your hand in the Zoom toolbar. To ensure the hearing is conducted in a fair manner, we will follow these steps. First, the applicant and or their consultant who has already had an opportunity to describe the project will give you a chance to make further comment if they choose to. Second, we will go on to those who have indicated in their registration that they would like to speak. After that, we will call on any and all that have raised their hand in the Zoom toolbar and would like to make a comment if they have not already been called upon. As a reminder, if you are participating in this hearing via telephone only, follow the directions of the moderator on how to identify that you would like to make a comment. You may also submit your comments to Eagle via our My Enviro portal, which we've shown the link for earlier, and we'll show it again as well and put in the chat. We can accept comments by email as well or by mail. When all the comments have been completed, we will ask if anyone else would like to make a statement. When your name is called, your microphone will be unmuted. As you begin your comments, please state your name and any group or association you may represent. Each person will be given 5 minutes to make their comments. We will indicate to you when you have 1 minute left. Please begin wrapping up your comments and end within the allotted time. If need be, we will indicate when your time has ended. We ask that we all be courteous and respectful of one another tonight. Please also recognize that Eagle staff is here tonight to provide a fair opportunity for you to express your comments on the proposed project and to listen to those comments. How the information would be used in the future: the hearing is being recorded and your comments will be part of the information that Eagle will consider in making its decision on whether or not to issue a permit on the proposed project. The public comment period for this public hearing is open for another 10 days after today. So it will end on Friday, August 23rd, 2024. Additional information and comments submitted in writing during the 10-day public comment period will also be considered in Eagle's decision. Following close of the public comment period, Eagle will make a decision on whether to issue a permit for the project as proposed or with modifications, or to send a letter of denial. You may find out that what the decision is by checking Eagle's My Enviro portal site and searching for the application number HQ1-PXNK-VCRV1. Thank you for your attention. We'll begin calling the names of those who have indicated they would like to make a statement.
Yeah, many thanks for reading that, John. Like John said, I have a list of names who indicated during registration. I have 12 people, so we're going to start off with that list. I'll list the first person and then who's up next so that you know. As John mentioned, we'll have 5 minutes. You'll see a countdown timer in the corner of your screen counting down once you start to make your comment. And then you'll also, at 1 minute, you'll hear this sound. That's to give you a heads up when you have 1 minute left. Again, you want to give your name when it's your turn, and if you have any affiliation. And then if you're on the phone, you can raise your hand in Zoom by selecting #2, and we'll call on you once we get to the raised hands portion. It's going to be one comment per person. You'll have 5 minutes. If you're already on the line and you have somebody else on the line who would like to make a comment, please let me know, and we'll give them an opportunity as well, since it's going to be one per person. And with that, the first person that I have on my list that we're going to get started with is David Swan. And then after David, it's going to be Christopher Reinhardt. So David, it looks like you are unmuted on our end. So you'll just have to unmute your microphone and then start your comment when you're ready. And you're just going to want to click the microphone icon at the bottom of your screen to unmute it, and then make your comment.
Okay. Can you hear me, Ryan?
Yep, we can hear you. You can begin when you're ready.
Okay, thanks. Eagle has already made their decision regarding permitting 50+ boats, 50 per each proposed house at the North Shore development. So they've already made their decision regarding permitting 50+ boats to enter the river at that point in the river mouth area. In February, Eagle wrote, and I quote, "The proposed marina will likely have significant effects on the public and tribal uses of the river and thus infringe on the public trust rights to navigate and fish," end quote. It doesn't matter how boats enter the river, either by marina or boat ramp. Eagle has already found the number of boats and that location will, quote, "likely have significant effects on the public and tribal uses of the river and thus infringe on the public trust rights to navigate and fish. Other uses of the water, including recreation, fish and wildlife, and aesthetics, will also be affected," end quote. And as Dale Harrison pointed out earlier on during this public hearing, there are prudent and feasible alternatives available to the property owner given their water frontage there. Thanks for taking my comment.
Thank you for your comment, David. All right, so next up is going to be Christopher Reinhardt, and then after Christopher, Iris Potter. Christopher, it looks like you are unmuted on our end. Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Begin when you're ready.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for taking my comment. So one, I would just like to echo, I wanted to say and summarize what David just presented. Given the size of the potential development, it seems as though 13 is the minimum number of boats that will be launched there in any given season, in any given day. But the likelihood that that grows significantly is very high, and that if that does continue to grow significantly, that there will be further requests for additions to that boat ramp to maybe hold larger boats, given the luxurious size of the homes there. And so it seems like that there is just a larger volume coming closer to the size of the marina than the 13 we're considering approving this for today. Thank you for taking my comment.
Yeah, thanks for making your comment, Christopher. All right, next up, Iris Potter, and then after Iris is Bobby Gaunt. So Iris, it looks like you are unmuted on our end. You can unmute yourself by selecting the microphone icon at the bottom of your screen and then make your comment. So we'll give you a couple seconds to, oh, looks like we lost you, Iris. All right, we will come back to you then. Yeah, I'm not seeing you on here. All right, Bobby Gaunt. Bobby, it looks like you are now unmuted. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Good. Thank you. I'm Bobby Gaunt, a full-time resident of Saugatuck, and I chair the board of the Saugatuck Dunes Coastal Alliance. This boat ramp project on its face appears less intrusive than the proposed marina project, given that it doesn't involve a large-scale excavation of the critical dune area. But nonetheless, it significantly impacts interest and uses that the Inland Streams and Lakes Act, Part 301, is designed to protect. These uses and protections are recreation, including paddling and swimming, fishing, including recreation and charter commercial, boating, and the Potawatomi Nation's traditional cultural uses and practices, including protection of lake sturgeon. In denying the marina permits in February of this year, Eagle stated that the proposed marina will likely have significant effects on the public and tribal uses of the river, and thus infringe on the public trust rights to navigate and fish, end quote. A boat ramp would impose the same navigational hazards and impacts on the public trust as the marina. Imagine boats coming off Lake Michigan trying to make the hard left turn right at the end of the navigation channel onto the ramp. And imagine the usual cohort of friends, families, kids, dogs, coolers, and floaties getting ready to embark or disembark their pontoons. There is no beach or park on either side of the ramp, rather just steel sheet pilings and a road. Now, it is true that a ramp structure has existed on this property for many years, but the use envisioned by North Shore is surely orders of magnitude greater than Broward Marine launching a few boats a year. Why do we think that? Because of this fact. North Shore has constructed 66 boat garages nearby, each with capacity to house multiple boats. Presumably, lessees of those garages would be heavy users of the ramp. This location was the wrong spot for marina, and it's likely the wrong spot for a boat ramp. Another reason Eagle denied North Shore's marina permits was that there are feasible and prudent alternatives available. A boat ramp might be one such alternative, assuming regulation and conditions are met, but North Shore wants to construct the ramp in addition to the marina. This boat ramp application is one of many examples of North Shore and properly seeking approvals for only bits and pieces of its overall development scheme. The Alliance believes that Eagle must require North Shore to submit comprehensive plans for its entire development and evidence about likely environmental impacts arising from the project, and B, fully evaluate the impact of all elements of the entire development under each applicable part of the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act, including feasible and prudent alternatives under the Michigan Environmental Protection Act. Piecemealing individual elements of the development allows North Shore to minimize and mask the overall impact to the detriment of the public interest and the public trust. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comment, Bobby. All right, so we're gonna go back. Looks like Iris Potter is back. So we'll see if I'll unmute Iris. Are you there, Iris? Oh, you just had unmuted.
Yes, I am, but thank you.
Oh.
I wasn't planning to address this tonight, but thank you very much.
Okay, yep, no problem. Yeah, thanks for letting us know. All right, next up I have is Mike O'Brien, but it doesn't look like we have Mike. If you're logged in under somebody else, please raise your hand, Mike. Otherwise, we'll get to you when we go to the raised hands. And then Nick Wallace, and then after Nick is Elizabeth Jones. So Nick, it looks
Hey
like
there,
you're
can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. You can begin when you're ready.
Alrighty. Thank you for this opportunity to provide myself with a public comment. My name is Nick Wallace, and I'm a frequent enjoyer of the river mouth when it comes to kayaking, fishing, and looking for wildlife. This river mouth is of utmost importance to me, and because of this, North Shore's proposed boat ramp is not feasible for several reasons. So first off, there are already a ton of boaters on this river, like we've talked about, regularly passing by this location and not using the navigational channel. And fishing along the seawall there as well, where they said boats might, kind of wait to enter and exit. As someone who navigates this area of the river by kayak and canoe, the addition of a boat ramp would change how this river mouth is navigated. Significant adverse impacts, as outlined in the Inland Lakes and Streams Act, is simply not allowed, further degrading the riverbed the riverbed, which, you know, is vital habitat for bivalves like clams and mussels, and known sturgeon habitat there as well, right there in the cove. With concrete, when there are already boat launches just upriver, seems kind of preposterous to me. Consider how much habitat's been lost already statewide. You know, consider we're in a critical dune area. Several local commercial fishing and sailing businesses have expressed concern over the navigation and wildlife hazards the marina would introduce, and the boat ramp is no different. How will the volume of boats proposed in North Shore's development plans change since they don't have their marina? They've yet to answer this. Their plans call for dozens more homes and therefore dozens more boats. North Shore is legally not allowed to break up their project into smaller pieces. And the township's own ordinance, when they granted the marina permit, say no boat launching and or in and out boat service is permitted under the marina permit. So I urge that Eagle do the right thing and deny this boat ramp permit for the same exact reasons they've already expressed in their marina denial. Protect the public trust, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for your comment, Nick. All right, let's see, we have Elizabeth Jones, but it doesn't look like she is on the line with us. And then Scott Stearns is after Elizabeth, and then Amy Weesaw. So Scott, it looks like you're up. Looks like you're unmuted on our end. You can unmute yourself and begin your comment when you're ready.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great. I also, like Nick, well, I live about a quarter mile upstream from the proposed boat ramp, and I and my family have been there for 3 generations. I'm very familiar with the traffic on the river. And also, I paddle the river pretty regularly. And I'm just north of the McEnroe Heron Pond Conservation Easement. So the reason I'm giving this background is that I've seen over the course of 6 decades or so, the gradual effects of the increase in traffic on the river. And I'm speaking specifically on the east bank there. This is not adjacent directly to where the project would take place, but it speaks to traffic volume. And we have huge trees that are on the top of the east bank there that have their roots exposed, and they never used to be that way. And that's because I know there are water cycles and everything, and I've seen those rise and fall, but it's really clear that there are impacts from wakes and boat traffic that are washing away that shore. And it also relates to the animals there. I just feel like there are some things that have come to light here that if we don't have certainty about how many boats actually would be using this ramp, I think it's better to hold off so that we can find out. Because if it were to be a higher frequency, even if that's not proposed currently, but it's possible, I think that, again, as some people have already said, that's a really compelling reason to at least avoid it until we can get some certainty. So thank you.
Thanks for your comment, Scott. Right. Next up is Amy Weesaw, and then after Amy is Rebecca Milliken. So Amy, looks like you're unmuted.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sounds good. You can begin when you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Amy Weesaw. I'm the senior staff attorney for the Nottawassippi Huron Band of the Potawatomi. And the Kalamazoo River mouth is critically important to the tribe. Generations of its citizens have used the Kalamazoo River mouth for literally time immemorial. It has used it for fishing, gathering, hunting, congregating, and recreational and other critical cultural activities that continues to this day. The proposed boat ramp will have significant effects on the public trust and tribal uses of the river, and therefore infringe on the public trust rights to navigate and fish. This issue to me is particularly exacerbated by the lack of information with respect to how many boats. I think I heard today 13 to 15, but then there was a question about how many it could, they've heard numbers of upwards of 150. And what I heard was, we're not really sure. And then I think I heard, Eagle say that, well, we can't require a number and then we can't subsequently regulate that. That's pretty significant and will have significant effects and will, just exacerbate the impacts to this area. We strongly urge Eagle to deny the boat ramp permit, not because we disagree with it and we don't like it, although the tribe definitely does, but because it's violative of the applicable laws, including the Lakes and Stream Act. It's also Lakes and Streams Act, excuse me, and also the prohibition against breaking up the large project into pieces. I think that's particularly evident here, as everybody's kind of mentioned, that, oh, it doesn't seem like that much because of this dock. But in fact, you have this as part of a bigger project that has already been rejected. And this will definitely impact the tribe's ability to continue to support its critical cultural uses of that area. And for those reasons, we, strongly object to it. And also it will definitely applies to those areas that Eagle is bound to protect. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment, Amy. All right, so after Amy was Rebecca Milliken, and then after Rebecca, Dale Harrison, and then Dale is the last person on my list before we go to people who haven't spoken and raise their hands. So Rebecca, you're unmuted. You can begin when you're ready.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep, sounds good.
First, I just want to thank the department for holding the public hearing this evening and taking the time to carefully scrutinize this application. As kind of a housekeeping matter, I think it's already been referenced a couple of different times tonight, but from the marina permit application proceedings last summer and also a number of other various applications that North Shores has submitted to the department over the last 7 years or so, some of which were never fully determined. There is a quite extensive record that exists about impacts from various development proposals on resources that are protected under state statute. And so I would just urge Eagle to take a look at the record that exists in relation to some of these other applications that are within its files, and consider those materials that are relevant to the application we're talking about tonight. In particular, there's a letter from April 4th, 2023 that the department sent to the applicant, and this was about, I think, boat hoists. That was an application that must have eventually been abandoned or not completed. But that letter, in that letter, the department took the stance that breaking up a large overall project into smaller pieces is not permissible under Part 301. And the Coastal Alliance, I think I neglected to say that I'm an attorney for the Coastal Alliance, but the Coastal Alliance, as you heard Bobby say earlier, that's exactly what we think is happening here with this boat ramp. It's an integrated part of North Shore's overall development scheme, but we don't really know what the contours of that full development scheme are. It's never been comprehensively explained by the applicant, and consequently, the department has therefore not been able to assess the impacts and alternatives in that full context. And I would like to echo Amy's comments that the applicant's inability to state how many property owners could access the boat ramp here tonight, that really, I think, highlights their lack of transparency with the development scheme overall. And that just makes it impossible for Eagle to do its job and really understand and evaluate what the impacts are going to be and whether those are consistent with Part 301. So I would say, on that basis alone, this permit should be denied. I'd also like to point out, there's been lots of reference to the marina permit and the fact that it was denied back in February, but that decision is being appealed. And I think that's a little bit of a wild card here. It creates a situation where potentially both the marina and the ramp could be constructed and put into use. And then the impacts, that both being in operation and use at the same time would be severely impactful on the river and its users, and the public trusts that are all protected under Part 301. And so I think it may be appropriate to delay any decision on this permit until the administrative appeal of the marina denial is concluded. Last, I would just like to respond to one thing stated by Mr. Bosgraaf. There was some discussion of, riparian interest area and users of the boat ramp sort of staying out of the way. But I would like to emphasize that where those lines are drawn are not conclusive to the Part 301 analysis, because the North Shores riparian rights there are still subject to the public's navigational servitude. And so it's useful to see the picture, but it doesn't determine whether or not impacts may be experienced. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your comment, Rebecca. All right. So next up is Dale Harrison. So Dale, it looks like you're unmuted on our end. Feel free to unmute yourself and begin when you're ready.
Thank you very much, and thanks for holding this public hearing. Some of my comments are going to be maybe drifting away from some of the others, but I want to go back and a little historical perspective on this area. Please consider the comments regarding North Shore's application for the construction of a boat launch near the mouth of the Kalamazoo River. Years ago, at a public hearing held in 1977, I spoke as president on behalf of the Kalamazoo River Protection Association in opposition to the construction of the yacht manufacturing building and boat launch access to the Kalamazoo River. Back then, the MDNR approved the construction for launching boats manufactured at the site. Saugatuck Township Zoning Board of Appeals approved a special use variance specifically only for Mr. Frank Dennison's yacht building business, commonly called Brower Marine. If and when the yacht building business discontinued, the variance would no longer be valid. It was directly linked to the manufacturing. The Zoning Board of Appeals determination was very clear. The use was not to be grandfathered for future development use, except for shipbuilding. Over the last 40 years, residents of Saugatuck Township and others have made, and many other environmental organizations have made their concerns known. The public trust, if you will. For example, docks are only allowed adjacent to the shoreline. Inland basins in our channels are strictly prohibited, and there's no section of the waterfront ordinance that allows for a boat launch. Yet no application for the boat launch has been filed with the township, and that should be something that North Shore should do in the near future. It seems reasonable to have some way to access the river. As you know, the applicant is entitled to build docks adjacent to the shoreline. If the frontage is developed as residential individual lots, there may be room for 9 docks. There's a planned unit development. The potential number of allowable docks increases to approximately 20 docks. That would be the maximum. However, there are restrictions due to the numerous environmental concerns, the narrow river channel, and issues with boater traffic safety. It's not clear how many dock slips would be approved by the Saugatuck Township Planning Commission, or EGLE for that matter. This is really perplexing. I can't help but look at my little crystal ball and say, well, okay, you want the basin, you want docks eventually off the shoreline, and you want this boat launch. I can't understand why you would be, I don't understand why these shouldn't be consolidated. One has pretty much been eliminated except for the long appeal process, which could be a half a decade or more. But anyway, my point here is that North Shores is entitled to have a limited number of docks and slips on the Kalamazoo River like any other property owner in the township. But that is the feasible and prudent alternative to not only this boat launch area at this point, but more importantly to the basin that is now under appeal by North Shores.
You there, Dale?
Just a couple things. There's no current application filed with Saugatuck Township or the Michigan Department of Environmental, Great Lakes and Energy for docks allowed under the Saugatuck ordinance. And I think this really gets to the gist of all the leapfrogging that's going on. I can't help but believe, in my opinion, that eventually there's going to be a request for docks along the lake, along the riverfront. How complicated that's going to be with the channel being fairly close in some of those narrow areas. But I think that's the step that I'd like to see North Shores move forward with. So as a result of my concerns here, please deny this application and advise the applicant to file an application that is consistent with the township ordinance and the protection of the ecology, the cultural and historical Anishinaabe values at the mouth of the Kalamazoo River and the harbor natural area. Thank you. I look forward to your determination. Thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for your comment, Dale. All right, so that concludes who we had on our list of registrants who indicated they want to make a comment. So if there's anybody else on the line who has not made a comment yet and would like to make a comment tonight, please raise your hand in Zoom using the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen, and we'll call on you on order. If there's anybody calling in by phone, you can select #2 on your receiver, and that will raise your hand in Zoom. And we will unmute you using the last 4 digits of your phone number. So with that, I have Laura Judge is up next. So Laura, looks like you are unmuted and you can begin when you're ready.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, I live probably less than a mile from the Saugatuck Dunes State Park, Laketown Township, private resident, and I just feel totally overwhelmingly that this request violates the public trust to protect our land and our water for the common good. There's absolutely too many unknowns about the future number of houses, residents that might be using this boat launch. It's detrimental to the aesthetics of the area. The proximity, I believe I heard, was within about 1,600 feet of the state park's south boundary line. So that's less than 1/3 of a mile. Worried about the noise. I've seen cigar boats, those long cigar boats that can be launched on trailers, that are just make the horrendous loud noises. The land the public lands that are across the river from this proposed project, which are public lands, there's people that enjoy that cove, the round little area there that's, I believe, pretty much across from this. That would really disturb the aesthetics of that area. I'm very worried about the wildlife in the area. My husband and I were hiking in the state park just about 10 days ago, and there was an eagle there right on the tall tree there by the beach. There's coyotes in this area, owls. I hear owls at night right out of our bedroom window here by the woods. And I just feel like this whole project would just further degrade our whole natural ecology around here. Totally opposed to it. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your comment, Laura. All right, next up, Tracy Schaefroth. Tracy, you are unmuted on our end. Looks like you can begin when you're ready.
Okay. My name is Tracy Schaefroth, and I have owned property in Saugatuck and Douglas since 1987. We brought our 2 boys up on the Kalamazoo River every summer until they moved away not long ago. They played on the river and the dunes, and most days made their way out to the river mouth in a sailboat or a motorboat fishing along the way. It was paradise for them, and those years gave them a love of the environment, the community, and the river. They return every summer and bring the next generation with them. Noth Shores' application for a boat ramp at the mouth of the river would bring increased navigational hazards to an area that is already perilous. Over the decades, I have watched the river traffic increase steadily with the introduction of jet skis, pedal boats, and those giant floating inner tubes. Adding the boat ramp and the significant yacht traffic that will follow would inevitably lead to accidents. I can't imagine what havoc a boat ramp in the midst would bring. As a conservationist, I am concerned about the impact of increased traffic on one of the few breeding grounds for native sturgeon. It has been a sacred ground for native tribes for millennia, where young fish spend their first perilous year. I strongly urge Eagle to deny the permit application before you tonight. As you well know, this application violates many of the very same regulations and ordinance that the marina presented and you denied in February. Thank you, as always, for your thoughtful consideration and your hard work at Eagle.
Thank you for your comment, Tracy. All right, is there anybody else who has not made a comment yet that would like to make a comment? Just click the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen. Anyone on the phone can select #2 on their telephone receiver, and that will raise your hand in Zoom, and we'll call on you using the last 4 digits of your phone number. Not seeing any other raised hands right now. If we're finished and don't have any other raised hands, then we'll close this part of the hearing out, and I will wrap up with going through those other ways to make a comment in case you didn't want to make a comment tonight, and as well as providing John's contact information in case you have additional questions. With that, I'm still not seeing any other raised hands at this time. So, John, would you like to read the closing statement for us tonight?
Thanks, Ryan. Yes, I would. Thank you for your comments and cooperation, everyone. We appreciate your interest in the proposed project and that you took the time to be here tonight. As indicated at the beginning of the hearing, you may submit additional written comments until Friday, August 23rd, 2024. Following the close of the public comment period, we will consider all comments received and make a decision on the proposed project. Just remind those that may still want to submit a comment, comments can be submitted via our My Enviro portal, email, or US mail. The hearing is now closed. Thank you again.
All right, many thanks, John. As John mentioned, I've got those other ways to submit a comment on your screen, and they're in the chat. Through My Enviro or by mail to Eagle Water Resources Division, Kalamazoo District Office, 7953 Adobe Road, Kalamazoo, Michigan, 49009. As John mentioned, the comment period will be open for 10 days, which will end on August 23rd. And as promised, providing John's contact information can be reached by phone at 269-568-2680 or by email at bayhaj@michigan.gov, and that's bayhaj@michigan.gov. That information has been put in the chat as well, so you see it in there. And before we wrap up, any closing comments for us tonight, Derek?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for taking some time, almost a couple hours, out of your day, out of your schedule, to participate. I appreciate everybody, whether folks who made a comment or just listened in. I very much appreciate it. So thank you all. The public participation piece, is an important part of what we do. So we appreciate you attending the hearing and hope everybody has a great evening.
Many thanks, Derek and John, for being on the panel for this hearing, and all of you for participating. Last thing I'll wrap up with just a reminder that this hearing was recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube channel in a couple days, so you'll be able to find it then. With that, I hope you all have a great rest of your night. Thanks,
Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.